Ready? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Audit and Control Committee meeting for August 17th, 2023. My name is Bob Scudder. You can refer to me as Mr. Chairman this morning. I have arrived. First item is approval of the minutes from the 7/20/23 meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair, to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Dave seconds it. Thank you,
Second
Dave.
that. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That brings us to the privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here this morning that would like to speak to us from the floor?
I hear it coming back, but I just wanted to make sure you all knew our new budget director, Jennifer Swan. She'll be right back. And
What an entrance.
Okay. No idea what just brought that on, but all right.
Buy lunch for everybody. That'd be nice.
So she'll be the voice from the back of the room.
correct.
Yes, I will.
Additionally, I'd just like to introduce Blake Eric. He just started about 2 weeks ago now, Director of Administrative Services. I talked to you about that position when we talked about the fiscal reorg last month, but he's also taken over as the ARPA Administrator among his, other duties. So.
The Blake here
The? Hope that's good. The?
from Fredonia, right?
Yeah,
Blake here?
yeah, yep.
That's what I thought it was. Okay. Anybody else we need to meet this morning? We're good? Okay. Thank you, Kitty. All right, that takes us to our first local law intro, 823, a local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for county officers and employees. If you would all please state your name for the folks at home.
Derek Gregory from the Public Defender's Office on behalf of Chief Public Defender Ned Barone.
Debbie Mikowski, Director of HR.
Patrick Settle, County Attorney.
Thank you. What do we have this morning?
So what you have before you, a proposed local law amending the management salary plan. This is for attorney positions countywide. I want to point out that, all three impacted department heads participated in this process. They were active participants. Kind of enabled us to react from some of the issues that are coming down from the state quickly. And sorry, lost my train of thought. Without their input and assistance, we would not have been able to react as quickly as we did. So that being said, I'm gonna let them sort of bring you up to speed on what's coming down from the state to put us in this position, and then I can sort of circle back on anything that we would need to cover here.
So a common theme we've often talked about is recruitment and retention. That's also an issue for the attorneys currently right now in the state. Our county is no different from any other counties. I talked with Cattaraugus County, Allegheny counties. In May, when I went to the County Attorney Association, we spoke with several other counties all the way up to St. Lawrence County and beyond, and there's just an attorney shortage. It's a hard time trying to find attorneys to fill these positions. We're competing with private law offices. We're competing now with New York State has raised the 18B wage, which is the indigent representation. It used to be $70, $75 to take on a case assigned by the court. It's now $158 an hour to take on a case. So the attorney shortage coupled with that is making it really hard to attract attorneys to county government work. Our thought is by making these adjustments, we can really attract high quality attorneys to come and serve the county.
So on behalf of the Public Defender's Office, we receive much of our funding from Indigent Legal Services. As the legislature is aware, Indigent Legal Services has established caseload standards, and Indigent Legal Services requires us at the present time to have many more attorneys than we can attract with the the present salary range. And last year, we had a fairly significant attrition rate based on retirements and people leaving for private practice and other pursuits. And had the salary range been higher, that might have provided an offset for that attrition.
I can only speak to you from my personal experience in the DA's office. I can tell you, and it's really similar to probably what each of you experience in the private sector as business people. We have a shortage of attorneys. So we've had open positions and we've tried to find creative solutions for dealing with the situation. For instance, we closed out some of the attorney positions and opened them up as paralegal positions. We were able to fill a couple of those. We then tried to move into a part-time model, which is something that the county frowns upon. Nobody wants that. It's not cost-effective for the county. But we were in such a public safety crisis zone that we felt that we had to do something here so that we can man the courts that we're responsible for, prosecute our cases in compliance with the discovery laws that have placed an enormous challenge for all of us. And still, we're faced with with just an overload for each of our attorneys. We have the pressure that they're under because they're working far greater than full-time hours. In addition to that, they are being courted by the private sector. I've had attorneys approach me, and I think that was the genesis for some of the discussion is I had put in for raises because I had attorneys approach me with ultimatums saying I'm getting paid X for working approximately 50, 60 hours a week in a high stress environment, and I'm being offered X plus 20, 30,000, with comparable benefits, not that far off, in order to go into the private sector in a partially remote environment. So, that really set off some alarms for me because I'm trying to plug holes and now there's even more, more going on. So I don't know what else we can do, and I think you see it too. If you try to contact an attorney to handle some of your business needs, you're very limited, and we're limited in the public sector as well. And I think the challenge is because of the assigned counsel rate. I think it creates at least the appearance of a very attractive environment. I know Ned has talked about the days when assigned counsel was, like whatever it was, like $25 an hour. Now, can you imagine $158 an hour for assigned counsel work? Everybody's doing the numbers out there saying, you know what, if I keep my private practice and you give me about 20 hours of assigned counsel work, and that covers not just criminal matters, it's family court matters, AFC work, working on behalf of children, you can make a boatload of money. So why go into full-time, public sector work? It's just not worth it. That's the situation.
So, sorry, Ned, did you?
That's what Derek had a chance over.
He did, yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Derek may have mentioned, but I spoke previously at the committee meeting the other night, and just to follow up what Jason said, this is one time I think we're all in agreement that I think it's not only best for each department, but for the county as a whole. And I think that the last thing that I certainly don't want, and I'm sure Jason and Pat don't want, is some type of competition between the departments in keeping or getting attorneys. I think that if we're comparable and those rates are picked up to make things attractive, I think that what you'll find is we'll be able to recruit the attorneys that want to do the type of law with each respective department. Either you want to defend people and be a public defender, or you don't. You either like it or you don't. It's not something you put up with. Same is true, I'm sure, for being a prosecutor. Personally, I tried it years ago. I didn't like it. I just can't do it. And the same is true for government law and contracts. Some people are just much better at it. So I think what you'll find is that if you have those attractive, like Jason said, attractive salaries on top of the benefits of being a government employee, I think it's gonna be tough to beat for a lot of these young attorneys. And again, it's not just unique to our county, but when I was at the chief defender meeting in Albany recently, it's the same for each and every county. Yesterday, we had one of the ILS officials here, and she was talking about things, and I know I've spoken to the director for ILS, and it's the same problem everywhere. And look, long-term, with these rates, the 18B rates, getting kicked up like they are, yeah, it's attractive, but you're still finding for some reason, and I know the reason, but sometimes it looks attractive, and yeah, it's making a big splash right now, but the reality is, these attorneys, to generate the income they want to on those rates in private practice is not all that simple. So if we're competitive and we have the rates we need, we'll be able to compete, I'm sure, with the 18B rates. And look, I just think it's a great thing. And I know we've sat down and Deb Mikowski's done a great job in pulling this together. And I think it would be beneficial to the county as a whole. And I'm not talking just about my department, but for the county, it's gonna be beneficial.
So the proposed local law is looking at countywide attorney positions, increasing their salary ranges by 3 grades. Keep in mind that a salary grade increase does not necessarily mean a salary increase to the employees. There's actually only 4 individuals who would need an immediate increase to get them up to their new minimum in their newly assigned range. The total financial impact would be $29,000, and it's roughly $6,000 to $14,000 hitting the 3 impacted departments. I certainly don't want to speak for the 3 department heads, but I am told they've looked at their budget and they have room to absorb the changes. Any additional steps would be taken within the newly assigned ranges, obviously, of course, within the approved budget as well.
And one of the things, as Debbie mentioned, we've all been sitting down, and I think the ultimate goal is, although we're not going to always match dollar for dollar what we pay our individual attorneys, we all want to be in the same ballpark, I think. So that's not, someone jumping just for a higher salary. We want someone to be a municipal attorney because they like that. We want someone to be a ADA because they like that type of work, not because, Ned's paying $5,000 more and then Jason rates his $10,000 more, someone jumps back and forth. So part of this too is try to keep a nice, even competitive, so we're not competing against each other.
And ultimately, just to follow up what Pat says, if they're not jumping because of those pay differences, you're gonna end up with a better product in the end. If you're getting someone who's practicing government or municipal law, whatever you're referred to it as, you're going to get an attorney that's good at it. Likewise with us and in the PD office. And we've been told from the state, look at, for the first time because of the state grants, you're going to be able to hire attorneys that really want to defend the indigent. Attorneys that really want to do the public defender work. It's not just to take a job, but it's to do that type of work. And you end up with a better, someone who's really, their heart is into it. And you're going to end up with a better product. And again, it comes to ultimately, it's the county benefiting out of it. It's not any single department.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So Deb, you said, so we're thinking that the difference would be the 29,000, and those departments said that they would be able to absorb that in this year's budget.
Correct.
Okay. So obviously there'd be expansion for next year's budget. Do we know what those figures would be, or we'll just have those at budget time?
That, I believe that would just be included in the budget process.
Okay, okay. So no hit to the bottom line now? The
Correct.
29,000, okay,
Correct. Correct. Staying within the 2023 budget.
okay.
Correct.
I just have one thing. I'm in favor of this. This is something I think we need to do long-term for the county. I think that was spot on. The assessment along with Jay, with the increases, we're gonna attract people, and I think it's important to do that. And then those people who want to work in this field want to be here, and that's something that we need to do. So I'm definitely in favor of this local law. Chair.
I just have a few things. First of all, this sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but I appreciate what you guys do. I kind of feel like you're looking out at the same, we're serving, you're serving, and that's what we're here for. And so I do appreciate that. I was in someone's office a couple months ago, and there's the Bar Association poster. And we started going through them, and I think about 40% of the individuals are still on that poster. Ned was on there, Jason was on there. Anyhow, yeah, you were part of the 40% that was still on the poster. It might have been your senior picture from high school, but well, no, I just went, wow, because I am familiar now with making a phone call, and it used to be a 20-minute response. And I'm not picking on attorneys. I'm just saying the workload is huge, even in the private sector, and there isn't a whole lot of people filling the seats coming up to do that. So I guess my question is this enough? Is this gonna be something that we need to do a year from now, or does this seem like it's an increase that's going to sustain us for a longer term? It sounds odd for me to be sitting here saying, should it be more? But
I can just give you my thoughts. It just expands, it opens the window a little bit wider, gives us some discretion, to be able to retain those attorneys that we feel, benefit the organization. It's very difficult. There's the same thing with family businesses, right? There's a succession issue as you build a business and then, you start to get ready to retire. The question is, who's going to take over this business? And then you have your kids that are moving out to Rochester or Buffalo. They have no interest in staying in Chautauqua County. I mean, for instance, we have Tracy Brunez, 30-year prosecutor in sex crimes and special victims. She's going to retire shortly, and we're anticipating next year she'll be out very early on, and she's, who do we have to bring in? It's very difficult to be able to have the succession, and we have to retain people so they can develop the experience. And I know Ned has been focused on that as well, is to get his attorneys into a trial capacity. We're ready to go. I could do jury selection. I could do this. And that's the same thing that we're trying to achieve here. And I think that Patrick has the same, when you have a relatively young department, you're moving them up. So the question is, can you give us we have a limited tax base, but can you give us some discretion here so that we can retain those attorneys and attract other people into our offices to maintain a professional, office environment so that we can do our jobs?
would you? Well, and we experienced it. Patrick coming in, we feel very fortunate. I mean, Steve left with this wealth of experience and knowledge, and Patrick has stepped up very well to fill that position. Boy, there I go. You guys are going to want to stay here all morning. So that leads me, Jason, to how do you recruit? Or if I'm an attorney, do I just know about this? Or do you actually tap shoulders, make phone calls, or?
I'm sorry, I'll just give you.
Or Ned,
my
go
side.
ahead, yeah.
No, I think that every department, for the most part, up to this point, has been different. Now, I know that we've discussed this as a group, Jason, myself, and Pat, with Deb Mikowski recently, about what the county could do to help each one of our departments. And that's kind of, I mean, I think it's a global effort that it requires, number one, with the assistance of the county. And I think we've got a plan in place. But more importantly, for example, I don't want to speak, I'm not sure about the county attorney or the district attorney. In our department, we have statewide organizations. NISTA, for example, New York State Defender Association, which is really the prominent organization for criminal defense attorneys in New York State. So they keep an ongoing bulletin, which comes out on emails, and you can access any number of different ways. And they keep an active list of what's open out there in the mostly criminal defense work, but they run everything. The other organization, there's the New York State Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, which also is the same type of organization. There's a number of recruiting job fairs with UB Law and that sort of thing, which kind of directs their attention in a number of different fields. But it's not, I mean, if someone wants to practice criminal defense as a public defender, yeah, they would know what, I mean, that's something that LinkedIn, for example, is another area that attorneys come off of. So there's a number that you can, a number of areas that you can go to, find out what's available. And that's easily done, at least from the defense point of view. You know, and again, I've had a few people contact me that said, hey, I was up in the most recent, in Monroe County, and the PD there indicated that my department was looking for a particular type of assistant public defender that's maybe has some experience in a certain area. And so they referred me down. The southern tier, just keep this in mind, the southern tier, Chautauqua, Cat County, and Allegheny County, were kind of unique. And I think that what we have to do is use that for our benefit, but we're kind of still held separate and apart from the rest of the state. You know, it's just a little different. It's hard to explain, but we're in a great position in Chautauqua County. And I think that when people come to look for work outside of central or downstate, they're coming to this area, believe it or not, because we're in a great location where we're situated and the cost of living is less. And that's where I think the county, if they take an active role in putting the county out there, yeah, it'll be helpful.
And a big thing, you know, I think my office is kind of lucky. We're not really in recruitment mode. We're in retention mode. With social services losing so many attorneys, you know, we're covering 2 offices. And so really we're looking at what can we do to make sure that our attorneys aren't seeing other positions and going to other counties or other, you know, other departments, other, you know, private practice. And so each of us are different, but working with HR, we're really going to put some good advertisements out there using Indeed, LinkedIn to really attract people, let them know what a great county Chautauqua is. You know, the cost of living is great down here. Come here, we're going to pay you a very competitive wage, and hopefully we're going to attract more individuals.
Can I just throw in, and I know Debbie has brought this up, I do think that we have to undertake some type of revamping of our website, because I do think it's sort of primitive if you check out some of the other counties, and we really could do a good job. And I know PJ had brought on Justin Gould, and I think he's probably in a really good position to help out with that. Because I do think that if you're outside the county, let's say you go, if you're in Buffalo and you're looking to kind of move, what are you going to do? You're going to just click on Chautauqua County and check it out for yourselves and tell me what you think. It is what it is. It's limited, and I think we could do a better job of selling ourselves on that website. I think we have to take a holistic approach. If you look at what Judge Cass is doing, Judge Cass has sort of watched this as well. And so he started a program through the Jackson Center for paid internships, so to attract people that into Chautauqua County that have an interest in developing or maintaining their roots here by offering them paid internships, because a lot of people don't have those opportunities to get paid while they're interning, and that sort of gets them, and that's our hook, so that we can kind of pull them in. I mean, we're all doing this sort of like thing where we're trying to attract people and it's, you know, and sell them on Chautauqua County. I think holistically, we have to do that as a group, all of us, you guys included.
And that's a good point. It shows, we've been told by the, at least by the state on our end, that most PDs that recruit, it comes through the internship program. So if you get someone that interns for you, and in law school, they're usually coming in their first, at the end of their first, second, or second years. And between the second and third year is the big recruitment type of year. And so if you're getting the interns to come in and do your interning during these times, you're much more likely to keep them or hire them on once they graduate from law school and pass the bar. And that's at least at the state level. NISDA's told me that. So they're making efforts too. And we've got, like I said, NISDA and the Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers putting together programs that will work with all our counties on recruitment for interns. So we're taking it one step further and looking at recruiting while they're in law school, not waiting until they graduate. Let's go after them now. And if you get them here and they come and spend the summer here, working here, and they like what they see and they want to be here, our chances of keeping them when they're done are much greater. So it's kind of planting the seeds right now, and it may take a few years. And this kind of goes to what you're talking about are we making enough of a bump? You know, and that's tough to say. All I can tell you is from our end, PDs traditionally, public defenders, we were always at the bottom of the barrel pay-wise. I mean, my God, it was the sort of thing, if you did it, you loved what you did. You didn't care about what you were making, but now it's different. So just being on a competitive level, we think it's huge for us. So I think the bump is good. I think the bump will hold for a few years. At least that's my opinion, because I mean, statewide, this is what I wanted to tell you. Statewide, we're better, especially in the southern tier. We're better than Pace. We're much bigger than Cat, Allegheny, Steuben, or Broome, entitled that whole southern tier. And I know this because I talked with every PD in the last month. We're bigger than every one of them. And do you know we're the biggest? We've got the biggest department in the southern tier. So I think that we're in great shape. You know, the idea though is we got to get ourselves out there, like Jason said, and get those recruits. I think we're okay with this bump. I think we'd be in good shape for our department.
I can attest to that.
Good. I can't imagine living anywhere but Chautauqua County. So, you know, to say you go somewhere else and work just blows my mind. But,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'd like to add a little perspective to this. Giving a nod to Debbie Makowski, going back a number of months, the Public Defender's Office was in a desperate situation, losing attorneys, some to other internal opportunities, some external opportunities. So I asked Debbie to jump in and see what the HR department can do to help. And they didn't just look at the economic drivers, but they took the time to speak to some of the attorneys who left the Public Defender's Office and spoke with Derek and Ned to understand what their concerns were. The HR department then, at Debbie's lead and initiative, started assisting with the recruitment process. The HR department stepped up to assist more. Also, there was some efforts made by Ned and Derek to address some of the concerns that some of the attorneys had when they left. to improve the work environment. So not all economic, but trying to improve the situation for the public defender's office. And that, Debbie, didn't see the results that we had all hoped were going to come from that. And so that led to this initiative. So hats off to Debbie McCoskey for leading this initiative.
All right, very good. I look forward to supporting this next Wednesday when we actually vote on it. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anybody else? We good?
Good, sure. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda is local law intro 923, a local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for county officers and employees.
Debbie Makowski, Director of HR. This is another local law proposing a change to the management salary plan. However, this time it's to add 2 positions that are currently coded or graded elsewhere. The clerk to the legislature is currently a designated flat salary, and the secretary to the legislature is a non-graded position under the management salary plan. A closer look at the research that was done during last year's management salary plan review and the elected official salary review commission that's currently going on shows that we're clearly not competitive across the state in either title. The proposed local law would move both titles to a range within the management salary plan instead of the flat salary or the hourly rate. The change will not only help retain, but will recruit, not that we're looking to recruit anytime soon. And it would also allow more leeway in the management, the compensation management in the future. Of course, staying within the newly designated range and staying within the approved budget. A quick point, though, the proposed local law would not take effect until January 2024. So there is no impact, no immediate impact to this 2023's budget. Any questions?
Anybody?
Nope, good.
Mr. Chairman,
As far as comparing it, I guess I'm thinking of bigger counties and smaller counties. There's not a whole lot of smaller. I'm 19 legislator. I'm just, I'm probably not verbalizing this the way I want to, but I guess the duties and the responsibilities and all that are very similar, whatever county you're
Correct.
in.
Correct. And in the statewide comparison, we not only looked at all of the counties that reported, but we also drilled down into what we would consider comparable counties, size, population, overall budget. And regardless of how we sliced and diced the data, we are still
We fell short.
not competitive.
Okay.
Yes.
And that, I did not question that because I'm against this. I just was, for
Curious.
anybody in the room that might be affected by this, I'd like to say that I'm not against it. I just, if there's anybody in the room that's affected by it.
If I could say, when we first did the management plan at the end of 2022, both that plan, the attorney plan we just talked about, and this plan, Debbie does just amazing research. I mean, the graphs, charts, the comparisons she makes. So when she's throwing out numbers to you, I can attest that it's not just, at a whim. I mean, there's a lot of research and comparisons that go into it. So I've seen some of it that amazes me how she pulls all that, puts it together, and comes up with the exact numbers and ranges that gets us to be a competitive county.
Thank you. Good. Good, Steve?
Good.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3, proposed resolution modification of membership of North Chautauqua County Water District Administrative Board. Anybody here to speak to us on this?
Pierre Chagnon, Chairman of the Legislature. The genesis of this resolution comes from a state office of the Office of the State Controller's audit of the North Chautauqua County Water District. The report from the audit has not yet been received, but in the out briefings, the auditors expressed one strong concern that we fully expect to show up in the audit report, and that is a perceived conflict of interest between the North Chautauqua County Water District and its customer. Its customer is CBI Waterworks, which is Chadwick Bay Intermunicipal, which represents the 4 towns and the village which purchase water, use water from the North County Water District. The CBI Waterworks is a cooperative between the towns and the village that does the maintenance, reads the meters, does the billing, and buys the water from the North County Water District. As presently comprised, the North County Water District Board has 9 members. 5 of the 9, a majority, are the principals of CBI. So if you will, the customer, the only customer of the North County Water District, has a majority of the board that sets the water rates for the customer. Perceived conflict of interest. So we had considered how we would deal with this, and we came up with one approach, which may have been a bit severe in terms of completely restructuring the board. But in further discussion, the concerns were raised that the members of CBI have all the knowledge and experience and history with the creation of the water district, which is still not complete. And not wanting to throw out the baby with the bathwater, we came up with an alternate approach, which is before you today, to appoint 2 more legislators, county legislators, to the board. The board currently has 1 county legislator, but we're proposing to add 2 more county legislators from districts 2 and 7, which are within the water district, so that the CBI representatives would no longer have a majority of the board. We hope that this will be acceptable to the state controller's office and the report that they present to us. We're trying to be proactive. So that's what we are proposing to you today. Any questions? Legislator Wolfong.
Pierre, so who is legislator out of, who's 2 and 7? Who are they?
2 and 7 are John Penhollow and Bob Bankowski.
Have we spoke to them?
Yes, we've spoken to them. They're very excited about the opportunity to serve their communities.
Thank you.
How'd I do, Mr. Scudder?
That was great.
You said there was 3. Who's the other?
Terry Nebel.
Was also very excited.
He's also very excited.
Nice.
Okay. And District 3 isn't on there, and he is also very excited. Anything?
No, I'm District
Okay.
6, maybe your county lawyer on that way.
I'm good. You're very excited also.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great plan, and it was needed, and looks like it'll be effective. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pierre. All right, item number 4, proposed resolution, amend the 2023 budget for carts, bus tablets, And on your desk, you have the amended version of this. It was amended in public facilities, so we don't need to take action on that. But if you would just replace your resolution with the amended one that you have on your desk. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tim Card, Director of Public Facilities. This is a resolution 25720, Chautauqua County accepted grant funds from New York State Department of Transportation, Section 5311 grant, Title 49. Basically, this is a $15,000 replacement of tablets and hardware. And the tablets are what the drivers use daily for their scheduling, to keep track of their pickups, and also proof for all the Medicaid that we reimburse and get reimbursed from. And they're looking at 35 replacement tablets. And these tablets are about every 2 to 3 years they replace them. And the county's cost would be $1,500.
Questions?
Nope, good.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Thank you, Tim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That brings us to item number 5, proposed resolution authorize agreement with New York State DOT for performance of federal aid project PIN 5764.60.
Okay, this is the replacement of County Bridge 830, which is in Courtright Road, over Broken Straw Creek, in the town of Harmony. With the total now estimated, this is for design, the right of way, and all the surveying that we need to do to get started, with a total cost of $330,000, and with the county's responsibility of being $16,500.
Any questions?
Nope, good.
Tim, I got a question, just, and maybe I'm reading it wrong or whatever. The third whereas the County of Chautauqua desires to advance the project by making a commitment of 100% of the non-federal share of the cost of the project. Does that mean we're not taking the state funds? And what's maybe this is a common whereas that I've never noticed before, but I noticed it this time, so.
Yeah, I can check with Lex on that and get back to you, but I'm sure that we are.
Mr. Chairman, I think I can clarify that.
Okay.
What we're making a commitment to the federal government that by accepting their money, that if the state should not come through, that we're still going to go forward with the project and we'll pay the state's portion if they back out on it.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you, Pierre.
Yeah, it was,
Mhm.
it's like, why are we all in and not taking state money? Didn't make total sense, but now it does. Okay, questions, comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 6, proposed resolution accept FAA and New York State DOT funds for the aviation capital project. Rehabilitate airport perimeter fence phase 2 construction.
Morning.
Good morning.
Shannon Barnhart, Manager of Airports. In the beginning of this year, we had asked for to apply for grant funding as part of our airport capital improvement plan, and you guys approved that. We just received a phone call at the beginning of the month saying that we are on the list to get awarded for grant funding for phase 2 of our fence project. Right now, we're just about at completion of phase 1, so it would be nice if the FAA awards butted up together and they could just stay here and finish the project. We will find out 100% if we get it at the end of this month. So I'm trying to be proactive and not having to do an emergency meeting by getting acceptance from you guys and approval to accept the grant funding for FAA in advance. So
Questions, comments, concerns?
I like the proactive approach.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Last year we had to do an emergency meeting because of the time frame, so
Yes. Now, don't get too excited,
I know.
but I'm going to vote for this in committee just because I don't want it to fail in committee.
Thank you.
But the jury's still out on the general meeting next Wednesday, how I'm going to vote.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 7, proposed resolution, authorized settlement of insurance coverage claim.
Thank you, Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. Back in 2019, New York State enacted the CVA, the Child Victims Act. It allowed some previously time-barred cases for abuse to be brought into court. Claims were made against the county. We have about, I believe, 3 claims that occurred between 1969 and 1978. As usual, we do have insurance policies that will provide coverage. However, going back that far in length, there's clearly disputes that arise as to what those claims covered and, frankly, what insurance companies existed. Insurance companies over time merge, get bought out, consolidate. So we've been working with Continental Insurance Company about, exactly who they bought, who covered what. And so we've come up with a settlement that will provide actually payment to the county to cover to hopefully potentially cover any claims that are made against the county. So we're seeking permission to enter into the settlement with Continental Insurance Company, which again provides us funds that hopefully then we will apply against any settlement claims of these CVA cases.
So Patrick, you think there are going to be claims?
Well, we have 3 claims right now that we're working with counsel to resolve. And those will be various settlements depending on the cases, the facts. What we're doing now with the insurance company, with Continental, is saying you or your subordinates or companies that you bought were supposed to cover us for these claims back in 1969, 1970. So therefore, if something would happen now, the insurance company would cover everything. So they'd pay the full settlement to resettle. They'd pay for the attorneys to litigate the cases. We're trying to now take facts that are in dispute, that insurance papers are missing or lost on both ends, and so we're trying to get our insurance company, the insurance company Continental, to cover these claims that arose back in the late 60s, early 70s, and so this settlement we think is just based on the facts that we have, and so it'll provide the county with sums of money that then we'll hold, and as we settle these 3 cases, we'll use those sums to offer settlements or to pay for counsel to litigate the cases further if necessary based on the facts.
Going back to this time, these dates and times here, is that pretty typical to go that far back, or it just seems like 69 and 78? That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the issues when this was passed in 2019 by the state, allowing these time barred claims, because generally when to bring a lawsuit you have to do within a certain time frame, otherwise then you pass this what's called statute of limitations and you can't sue. Well, New York State said, well, because of these children victims, we're going to allow them to bring the lawsuits now when they're adults. Well, obviously that causes issues, because witnesses have disappeared, evidence has disappeared, and come to find out, same thing with insurance. Now we're going back and saying, okay, this insurance company existed back in the 60s and covered us, but they no longer exist. Well, who bought them? Did they change their name? And do they have documentation showing what they were going to cover? Had this claim been brought back then? And so it's quite messy. And so, after back and forth and some different negotiations, we feel confident again that the settlement will provide the county with funds to hopefully cover any and all claims that have been brought against the county.
So the first time I read this through, and then the second and third and fourth time, as I was thinking that we were giving you guys the opportunity to settle the claim with county money, but this is not the case. This is going to be money coming from Continental that we're confident,
Yes.
or feel good that we'll settle. the
Yeah,
cases.
we're settling with them, and they're going to provide us with money that would, claim money.
Okay.
Essentially, rather than going through protracted litigation against them, trying to prove that they should pay more.
Right.
But the amount that's being offered that we've negotiated, we believe that represents a fair sum of what we could potentially settle the CVA cases with.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. All right, our next item, number 8, proposed resolution amend 2023 budget to implement the IT upgrades for public health project within the Chautauqua County American Rescue Plan Act ARPA spending plan. Good morning.
Good morning. Mike Palm, Chief Medical Officer and Interim Public Health Director. Well over a year ago or more, the Health Department had applied for ARPA funding request in the amount of $110,000 for IT needs and upgrades. With the original application, the ask was, and the needs at that time were to upgrade and implement epidemiology, GIS hardware and software, updating public health databases, department scheduling and logistics, and epidemiological mapping. In addition to that, there were plans in place at that time to develop a public health and human services app, and also recognizing that the supply of laptops and internet-equipped smartphones were needed with hotspots to dispatch when needed. With our restructuring and reprioritizing, we took collectively a look at this ARPA request and really are focusing more on a very small section of this original request, which is the Surface Pro updates in the amount of about $10,000, which is what this resolution budget amendment is about. We are looking to purchase 6 Surface Pros. These are portable, obviously, with our mobile health unit, our rabies vaccination clinics that we do throughout the county, and other public health emergency preparedness type of situations. We do have a need to be mobile, and we do need upgrades with our mobile Surface Pros. We are looking to place a significant amount of this original request of $110,000 back into the ARPA pot after a collective decision within the health department. So at this point in time, we're just asking for a budget modification for the $10,000 for Surface Pro updates.
Questions, comments?
I just think if they're needed, they're needed. It's important.
I agree. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Look at this guy. He's already up there. Item number 9, proposed resolution of the county legislature of the county of Chautauqua extending the additional rate of taxes on sales and uses of tangible personal property and of certain services on occupancy of hotel rooms and on amusement charges pursuant to Article 29 of the tax law of the state of New York.
Patrick Slago, County Attorney. So this is the 3rd time I've been in front of you on this. This is for the additional 1% sales tax. If you recall, I was in front of the legislature before asking for to pass a resolution to request the extension of this 1%. The following month, we came back asking for the legislature again to support the 1% that the state was carrying on the floor. Now this is to implement that 1% sales tax that's been passed. That's the process that's used every 2 years, is the 3 separate resolutions. This last resolution here before you actually does go in front of the New York State Tax Authority. Their attorneys look it over. So I've gone through that process, worked with them. It meets their specifications. So therefore, I ask that you pass this resolution, which will allow us to continue the 1% additional sales tax effective December 1st, 2023.
Yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Favor the 1%, sure.
A lot of history in here.
It's quite
More than I've ever seen before. Why all that?
It's according to how New York State would like it.
Okay.
We work with part of the thing is New York State assigns an attorney to each county to review this resolution to ensure it meets the requirements that they need to have.
Right.
And they ask that this is passed by September, and that's why we bring it in the August meeting, because they then need time to ensure that it follows all their processes and procedures. And again, we have a November deadline. Obviously, the 1% expires in November, and so we want to be able to continue it effective December 1st.
Yeah, it used to be, it was in place. We're extending it.
Now there's a whole this is the third time, and this will be the final time. But in 2 years, hopefully, I'll be coming to you again with 3 resolutions.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 10, proposed resolution, amend 2023 budget for the law department.
Patrick Slater, County Attorney. This resolution is to transfer $48,000 from the unassigned fund balance into our contractual account. Recently, with the infrastructure bills, there's a lot of federal money out there right now floating around. And so working with a law firm, we found that they're able to go after these funds through grants, applications, and help steer these funds to the county, hopefully in significant sums. One of the issues, though, even when doing that, then there's a lot of paperwork, the applications, the follow-up, the compliance, all the legal work that goes with these grants, often that total millions of dollars. What we found is that we can utilize this law firm to not only go for those grants and find that money that could come to the county for infrastructure and other needs, but this firm can also then do all the legal work and the legwork that's required to go with that. And that will help free up attorneys in our office to then continue doing the day-to-day contracts and other litigation needs that we require. So this law firm is looking for a monthly retainer of $12,000. And so this transfer will allow us to begin a contract with that firm in September to the end of this year. And then we look in my 2024 budget to have that built in so that we can continue that relationship into next year. Again, we often utilize outside counsel for various things of this nature, sometimes heavy litigation. And we feel that the fact that there's just significant grant money out there, it'd be wise to have experts in that field going for those grants and then doing that follow-up legal work to ensure compliance, ensure we actually then get the money.
My only question was, I had 4 months, but you answered that. I didn't know when this was going to begin, so.
Yeah, we'll look to begin September 1st. And
Take us through
again,
the year.
it'll take us through the end of the year. Then in my 2024 budget, I have planned for this in that budget, and I'll be presenting that to you in October.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could real quick, just to add on to what Patrick has been saying, one of the pieces in speaking with this firm is these grant writers and people in the office, once this contract would be signed, the first thing they would be doing is reaching out to the county and then sitting down with us and saying, what projects do you have queued up? Have engineering studies, legwork done. There's, you'll hear some other projects that are going on. with the ability for the county to be a lead agency for other municipalities as well, getting this grant work. So the ball's gonna be rolling as soon as these contracts are signed to start, getting that infrastructure money. It's there. We've heard about this for the last year or two, but as everybody said, once it starts rolling, you need to be there at the front of the line, and that's what this enables us to do. We have several projects countywide that are ready to be queued up, so we're very confident that the return on investment will be, somewhat significant in the shorter run.
So this will be able to be used by municipalities within the county.
That's a hope. We haven't asked that question specifically. We are focused on, the county because we do have some projects the county's undertaking with clean water initiative, the sewer initiatives we've been working on, and broadband, certain things.
Right.
But that's another question we'll be answering is, how can we partner in those ways, and we'll find that out.
That'd be good. Yep.
Again, that return investment is definitely a good point. Is that our hope is that, we're spending $12,000 a month, $144,000 for a year, but if you're bringing in $6 million, $10 million grants, hopefully those have administrative things as well, so that it offsets this cost to a great deal.
Excellent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 11, adjust the law department account.
Thank you, Patrick Slago, County Attorney. We talked today about the shortage of attorneys. Currently, my staff is covering not just county law department, but also social services, attorney jobs in family court, and various other courts. So one thing we're looking to do is bring on a paralegal, hopefully both this year and into next year, to help backfill some of the need for attorneys until we can hopefully find some more attorneys. What we're doing is, if you've seen our office, it's limited on space, and so with the ability to transfer some money, we're gonna look to build some temporary places so we can house a paralegal. Also make the entrance a little more secure, a little more friendly as well when you enter the law department. So we got a quote for some work. It's $12,737 to do that work. But again, with the assignment of some of my attorneys over to doing social services work, we have that money in our budget, so we can just transfer that.
I'm all in favor of a friendly entrance. Comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Item number 12, proposed resolution, quit claim deeds.
Good morning, Kim Moline, Director of Real Property Taxes. Before we begin with this resolution, I need to ask if we can amend the resolution. PA 137, 2023, it was a parcel in Westfield. It happened to have been sold by the original owner in February of 2023, which we did not know. That new property owner was under the assumption that all of the property taxes that were delinquent had been paid. They had not been. We foreclosed on the parcel. We sold it at the auction. Person came in, paid the payment in full and everything. And then we found out that there was an owner and she wasn't happy that her house was sold. She put some hefty amount of money into it to fix it up and get it fixed. So with talking with the law department, with her attorney and the attorney for the previous owner, they have decided that we should let the person who purchased it in February reacquire the property. So we have refunded the person who purchased it at the auction all of his money for his auctioneer fee and his payment. And then we've got the paperwork ready for her to reacquire the property. So we need to have that one.
Did you say that was PA 137?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to strike through that.
Yes, please.
Did you happen to do the math on the totals? Okay, sorry.
Not the new totals. The totals on the bottom are what they were.
Right. And I guess we can do the math on that.
Just minus the 19,643.
Yeah. I'm just under such pressure being the chairman here that I can't do the math at this time. So if anybody wants to jump up and do that math real quick.
I'm doing it right.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
You're very welcome.
I mean, if we're going to strike through that, we should amend the
The
total.
totals, yeah.
At least that's what I think. And I'm the chairman, so it matters.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, yes, thank you.
Yes.
What we got, Tom?
The total in the far right column would be 137, 105.78.
Okay, and how about the,
I'm working on that.
I'd say take your time, but you already are. So,
You're just a vicious human being. $617,690.
So that would change our totals for the offer amounts to 617,690, and our taxes owing total to $137,105.78.
Mr. Chairman, if I may really quickly, I believe that should be 137, 105 and 81 cents.
Should have just turned around. She's sitting right back there.
The voice from the back of the
There you
room.
go.
The voice from the back, 137,
105, 81.
81. Tom, you're really close.
Settle down.
Actually, you were the closest without going over. We cannot make you the winner, but thank you for your effort. Okay, can we get a motion to amend this, please?
Make the motion to amend.
I'll second that.
All in favor of amending the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now let's talk about the amended resolution.
Okay, this amended resolution is all of the parcels that sold during the auction we had in July.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I'm good.
I read through it and couldn't see anything that stood out, so you guys do great work, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Proposed resolution, item number 13, proposed resolution setting salary for the chaplain.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jim Quattrone, Stock County Sheriff's Office.
At ease.
Thank you, sir. So this resolution is to set the pay rate for a chaplain position that I have proposed. This position title used to be under the 6,300 exempt class for the county home at a biweekly pay rate. We're looking to do this as an hourly rate for up to 19 hours a week. That does not necessarily mean that he would be working every week for 19 hours. And it would be set according to this 6,300 exempt class at grade 14.
Questions, comments? Questions. I appreciate the email you sent out explaining how this was all going to be set up. I think this is fantastic. I am in full support of it, and hopefully the entire legislature feels the same way.
Thank you.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Item number 14, proposed resolution, attend, I need my cheater.
Amend.
Amend 2023 budget for Office of the Sheriff.
Yes, this resolution is to cover the cost of our SUA with Motorola. We generally use our interoperability grant to pay this. However, New York State has released those funds the last couple of years later in the year than when this bill is due. So we use another grant to pay for half of that to upgrade, and we're looking to move money from the W911 to cover the first or the other half of this. And then following years, we will continue to use the interoperability, but we will be caught up and be ahead of schedule. And this is budget neutral.
So no impact to your budget.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Questions? Comments?
Could I just
Concerns?
add
Yes.
one thing? I forgot.
sure can.
In the future, our budget and fiscal information will be helped and shared by our new fiscal supervisor, who I wanted to introduce her to you. She's in the back of the room, Riley Enwall. So
Right.
she's not taking lessons from me.
Budget neutral. Budget neutral.
That was for Pierre.
All right, very good. Did we vote on this yet?
No, you did not.
Well, let's do that, shall we? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 15, proposed resolution, authorize execution of lease renewal with Federal Bureau of Investigation for tower space 10/1/2023 through 9/30/2033.
Yes, and I'm not sure if you got an updated resolution, but there's a typo on there on the copy that I have. Is that still on there? Okay, I just want. This is a renewal of a contract we have with the FBI at our Dutch Hollow Tower. This is revenue for the county and the sheriff's office. We expect it to go through 2033. Have no reason to believe that we will not continue to renew it for those 10 years.
Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, item number 16, proposed resolution. FY 2022 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant Program.
Noel Gutman, Director of Emergency Services. This is a grant we usually get yearly. It's a grant we use for training. This one is earmarked towards training and preparing firefighters for responding to lithium-ion battery fires. So this has it's a $16,000 grant with a $4,000 in-kind contribution from our office, which is done with the admin side. So.
Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 17, proposed resolution, amend the 2023 budget to implement the PPE replenishment project within the Chautauqua County American Rescue Plan Act spending plan.
All right, Mike Falk, Chief Medical Officer, Interim Public Health Director. This is a ARPA funding request that was approved by ARPA committee for $60,000 to address replenishment of personal protective equipment in order to be ready for addressing public health emergencies and overall emergency preparedness. This would include an array of different items, including gloves, gowns, N95 masks, surgical masks, different types of vests, privacy screens, body bags and other equipment for our coroner program, different types of suits which would include an aging stock of different types of suits, including Ebola suits, powered air purifying respirators, otherwise known as PAPRs, which help with long-term particulate protection. Level A suits, which would protect against toxic chemical vapors. Level B suits, which are more protection for respiratory and splash protection. The PAPRs run about $3,000 per unit. We would need probably about 6 of those, as the ones that we have in collaboration with our hazmat team are about 10 years old and are in desperate need of upgrades. The level A suits run about approximately $1,800. We would require approximately 4 of those. Level B suits are much less expensive. We are in need of 12 of those, running about $300. Our coroner program is in need of Tyvek suits, body bags, different types of uniform apparel, including pants and boots for our coroners. And then obviously we keep a very close tabs on our stock of PPE, including gloves, gowns, and 95s and masks, which we need to replenish year to year on an intermittent basis. So this budget modification is requesting $60,000 for those needs in personal protective equipment.
Okay. Any questions? Comments?
Good. We need it.
Yeah, needed items, so let's get them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 18, proposed resolution, amend the 2023 budget to implement the lead hazard reduction project within the Chautauqua County American Rescue Plan Act spending plan.
So a little bit of background here. This lead hazard reduction project obviously is addressing the significant problem with lead hazards in homes within Chautauqua County. When the original request went through, it was the funding amount requested and approved by the committee was $700,000. The initial application for and request for the funding included things that really incorporated not only lead, but other healthy homes related types of things, leaky roofs, holes in floors, broken steps, things like that. And then, we hit all the problems with COVID, with supply problems, lack of contractors, et cetera, et cetera. And I will acknowledge that, with the transition of leadership and the restructuring, this ARPA funding project, fell off the radar for a little bit of time. We are able, with the help of the ARPA committee and our budget directors and our new director of administrative services, we were able to get this back on track. We sat down and reprioritized and presented to the ARPA committee to really focus on the high contact areas for lead, pretty much primarily. And that includes windows and doors. So what we are proposing now is a budget modification for $36,000 for 2023 to really get geared up to aggressively attack the lead problem with the remainder of the budget for 2024. In 2023, we would be talking about spending approximately $5,000 in education through Job Corps for contractors or homeowners who want to go through the training for lead remediation and abatement. We do have some very expensive equipment with lead detection equipment that requires a lot of maintenance and calibration. That would be in the amount of $15,000 for this year. We have 4 old HEPA vacuums that need replaced in the amount of $2,000. And then also some educational and outreach materials in the amount of $14,000. So that totals the $36,000 for this year. And I think that gives us a few months to Anna Powell, who is our lead within the health department, so has no problem spending money with our grant funding coming through for all of our lead projects. She recently gave back only 23 cents to the state, so she has no problem finding use. We currently have about 300 open prevention and intervention units that need remediation that we know about. So these are homes that we know have heavy lead contamination, primarily within the 14701 zip code, and or these homes also have children that have tested positive with high levels of lead. So we want to hit this head on. Unfortunately, $700,000 barely scratches the surface of this problem, but we feel that, with the windows and doors, which are the biggest sources of contamination and poisoning our children, we hope to hit about 56 units at a cost of about $10,000 per unit, just for the windows and doors. So there are some things coming down from the state, some new developments that will really give us some advantages in battling this problem, those of which you'll probably hear within the next 6 months or so. So for now, for this year, at this point in time right now, the $36,000 out of that $700,000. We will be coming back probably soon to ask for additional budget modifications, whether it be this year or in early 2024 for the remainder.
Questions? Just a question. You said that there's training for the homeowners and stuff. So do
Yeah.
they participate in this?
Well, one model would be, as you could imagine, if we ask a contractor to replace these doors and windows, you could imagine those costs we're going to rip through those costs pretty quickly, that funding. We may be able to come up with a model where property owners, landlords can apply, and we're developing this right now, apply for windows and doors. We obviously would inspect the properties. We obviously would oversee the work, but we may be able to provide some education for the landlords and homeowners to do some of the, just talking about some of the safety stuff and how to, contain the lead during the remodeling process, how to clean it up, things to do, not to do, things like that, so they can do it safely and not create any more harm.
I mean, if we could lower the cost, we could do more. That's
Yeah.
my thought.
I mean, there's a lot of homeowners and landlords who do their own work, and we want to provide that education for them to do the work safely. So we have budgeted money to be able to do that. But then they can apply basically and through an application process for windows and doors for their units, and that would come out of this budget. Because unfortunately, if we had to go to contractors to do all this work, we would be touching maybe 20 units instead of 56. So, it's going to be somewhere in between there, but those details are being worked out. But
Good, thank you. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried. Thanks. Item number 19, proposed resolution, amend 2023 budget for Chautauqua Lake Collaborative Lake Maintenance Services using funding from the 2% occupancy tax program reserve.
Good morning, Chairman Scudder, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Dave McCoy. I'm a Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator. I work within the Office of Planning, Department of Planning and Economic Development. This resolution is about getting a little more money into the Chautauqua Lake collaborative maintenance functions. As many of you know, summers are getting longer. Short-term rentals are increasing. The use of the lake is expanding well into the fall season. Maintenance activities traditionally end at the end of the summer, generally the Labor Day holiday. This funding will help to ensure that we're able to maintain the lake, 42 miles of shoreline and the navigation lanes and those sorts of things through the month of September. Interestingly, our occupancy tax, started in 2009, has increased every year with the exception of 2019 when of course we had the pandemic then. So it shows that the tourism side and the lakes and waterways side work together, and they're working well. So our revenues continue to increase and are likely to do so in the future.
Questions, comments? I guess I can say, now having a place in DeWittville, the weeds and stuff were getting a little tough in front, and the crew came through, and it was, I don't want to say remarkable because that makes it sound like I didn't think you could do the work, but it really cleaned it up. It was very noticeable and very much appreciated. So I think we're doing a good job on the weeds and stuff, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to support this. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, next resolution, number 20, has been pulled. So that's 5 minutes quicker. We'll be able to get out of here. Number 21, we have some guests today.
Hello, my name is Brian Storms. I'm with Jamestown Container. I'm Jamestown Container's Corporate Environmental Health and Safety Manager.
Dan Becker, Jamestown Containers Plant Superintendent for 22 years.
Dave Span, Chautauqua County Soil and Water Conservation District.
The Chautauqua River is
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would you please read the resolution?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Proposed resolution to amend 2023 budget to implement Chautauqua River Stream Bank stabilization at Deming Drive using funding from the American Rescue Plan.
As I was mentioning, the Chautauqua River is a bit of a mess, and it's we're really being challenged by the death of so many ash trees. Maybe 10 or 15% of our forest cover is ash. There's an awful lot of them in the Chautauqua River corridor. They have been dying. The limbs are falling into the streams, creating debris jams and other things that are difficult to deal with. This resolution is going to help a local business preserve its ingress and egress, plus provide environmental benefits of reducing erosion and sedimentation on the Chautauqua. So Brian, if you could tell a little bit about what Jamestown Container does.
Jamestown Container has been in business since 1956, started with 3 local employees. We've grown to locally 120 employees we employ now. Corporately, we're about 400 with locations primarily in Rochester, Buffalo, and Cleveland. I've been with them for 35 years now. And as being there that long, people come to you for things. And recently, it was Dan actually that came to me and said, hey, did you notice what's going on with the Chautauqua River? And I really hadn't. And so I went out and basically, our main driveway it has always been about 60 feet away was the Chattacoin River. And over the course of just a couple of months, I believe, this spring, it ate its way 30 feet toward our driveway. Now it's only about 30 feet away from it. Now, the problem area isn't on our property. It's on the town of, the village of Faulkners, but it's coming our way, and it's going to take our property out. It's going to take a power pole out. It's going to take our driveway out. During the summer months, it's been pretty calm because they dam up the lake and the stream flow is very low. However, October 20th, they're going to open it up, and boy, we've seen the erosion just so fast. So there's good, something needs to be done. So we got everybody involved. And the primary reason, obviously, as Dave said, is the ash trees have come down, diverted the flow. And near our driveway, there was a large oak tree, again, not even on our property, but that erosion took that tree down, and it created a huge, massive jam, which then sent all the water around toward our driveway, just absolutely just taking an enormous amount of soil away. And like I say, it's been stable through the summer, but October's coming, and it's gonna start happening again.
So as Brian mentioned, this is a village street, and the village is involved, the town is involved, so the water is involved, and the county's involved. So Dave Spann has helped to formulate a response. If you could explain what you got in mind, Dave.
So it's a collaborative effort with everybody just mentioned. And the thing is the debris jams need to be removed. They're embedded and they're deflecting the flow directly into the already incised and eroded bank. And as you mentioned, when they open the dam, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's when they open the dam that it'll start to erode at an alarming rate. So the idea is to remove the embedded woody debris, bring in heavy rock riprap, and stabilize the bank for the future. And that way, there won't be an issue again. It'll protect Deming Drive. We're working on the environmental permits. There's a little bit of a hang up with some threatened and endangered species that presumably may be there. But we're working with the county to try to get that expedited so we don't lose a lot of infrastructure. And just the mere soil losses will be impressive. It'll be thousands of tons of soil that'll go down the Chattacoin.
Typically we try to tackle problems like this using the occupancy tax program, but this area is outside of the eligibility for occupancy tax spending, and the ARPA funding windfall, if you will, have created an opportunity for us to deal with this.
So 40,000 is coming from ARPA. There's we're working with the village, and there's more cost to this than just the $40,000.
It's likely to be $150K when you figure out the in-kind contributions by the town, the village, and the county. These funds from ARPA, the $40K, will be used primarily for materials, and that would be great big rocks.
Right.
Additionally, Jamestown Container has pledged $10,000 towards the project as well.
That's my question. Right?
Great.
You guys can help out.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Item number 22, proposed resolution, amend 2023 budget for feasibility study for proposed Chautauqua County Water District using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act.
Again, I have a few friends with me. Introduce yourselves.
My name is Robert Yates. I'm the supervisor for the town of North Harmony.
Don Emhart, supervisor for town of Stowe.
So Rob and I have known each other for quite a while, and oftentimes when we get together, the conversation revolves around good drinking water for the town of North Harmony. You could explain some of the challenges that the town faces.
This has been on the books probably since 1970. I have documentation going back that far. We have a lot of contaminated water in our town, primarily down in Asheville Bay. As we come up along the 394 corridor, along the lake, these are shallow wells that are very susceptible to bacteria. It's a real problem in our town and in our hamlet. I look primarily at the health and safety of the folks in our town. That's what's driven me to get to this point. The economic part of it, it's going to be good. We are working on finalizing our sewer district through the town of North Harmony. Phase 1 is completed and running. Phase 2 is up and coming. The town is working ahead right now for getting our our petition signs for Asheville and Asheville Bay, and we're about 50%, so we're looking real good and strong for that. Being able to use that infrastructure to move up through the town, up to Dawn's town of Chautauqua is the plan. We all know the water problems that we're having right now. We've had a lot of contamination, Chautauqua, Mayville, and it's time to get her done. It's time. We need to get this thing moving. We do need help. That's why we're here.
Don, if you could talk about your town.
The town of Chautauqua starts at Magnolia Road and comes up to, currently we have a water district with CUD that goes down to Chautauqua Shores. We would like to tie this water into that water district also, which would also give the people in Magnolia in that area better water and more water. Their wells are lacking in many cases of enough water. They're using lake water to flush their toilets. So this would be a big step in the right direction for public health and safety.
So one of the things that makes this opportunity special is it involves several municipal jurisdictions. And that being said, it creates an opportunity for a county water district. And with that comes the promise of efficiencies, being able to do more with less. You only need one maintenance truck, one billing center. The advantages of a large single district over several smaller districts are pretty obvious. Passed out to you some information that's prepared by Clark Patterson Lee. We've been working with Clark Patterson Lee in a number of projects, including the North County Water Project. Clark Patterson Lee also is pretty adept at finding funding for us. They were able to help find enough money to fully fund the phase 2 of the West Chautauqua Lake Sewer District. Those kind of things haven't happened for decades, and we were lucky to be able to get that fully funded with Clark Patterson's assistance.
So what we're looking for is bringing in the water from Jamestown BPU. And as of yesterday, Jamestown BPU is rated #1 water, public water in New York State through the New York State Rural Water Association. So that's where our water will be coming from, as far as pure, clean water as pure as it can be. And good, it's good water. So I would like to say that the health department is behind us on this project, as well as the BPU. So we got full support all the way around.
And they have plenty of water to supply.
They do.
Okay.
They got lots of water.
Mr. Chairman, as was mentioned earlier, the federal infrastructure money is flowing, pardon the term, but it will continue to flow for the next couple of years. But the opportunity to secure infrastructure money for this project is right now. So that's the timeliness of proceeding with this, is to have the opportunity to secure federal infrastructure money to make this project a reality.
So, and looking beyond the necessity of being able to provide healthy water to communities' residents, invariably we see after municipal infrastructure is brought into an area, whether it's water or sewer, we've seen an increase in property values, an increase in interest in development, which really has the potential to make this a strongly revenue positive endeavor.
Another thing that came to light was the recent PFAS disaster in Mayville. This would give us the ability, along with the town of Chautauqua Water District number 5 that is currently waiting the map plan and report, which will bring us from Chautauqua Institution to the village of Mayville. It will give us another source. Say the lake goes bad and CUD needs water, or something happens in Mayville, we'll be able to use this water up the whole side of the lake all the way to Mayville.
So you might ask yourself what would happen to the hand-loaded stove if we were able to provide infrastructure.
So we just finished up the revision on our comprehensive plan. Our last comprehensive plan did not include infrastructure. Things are changing. We are the welcome mat if you're coming to the east off 86, which Chautauqua Lake. Kings Point is relatively built out, you say. We have a lot of commercial property available in our town. It was important to get our ZBA and our planning board and town board all on the same page this time. Because of the sewer project that's getting completed in phase 1, we have had a lot of interest. But yet people are holding back the reins because in the restaurant business, the hotel business, water is as critical as the sewer. So we're preparing for what's coming. And I believe we're going to be able to do it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments?
I'm good.
I say we get this money before it dries up.
Let's go.
So,
Sorry, Pierre, had to use it. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
very much. Keep the water real raw.
Amen. All right, item 23, proposed resolution, amend spending plan and 2023 budget for Chautauqua County projects funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. State your name, Blake, please.
Good morning. My name is Blake Eric. I'm the new Director of Administrative Services. And this resolution is to amend the spending plan and the 2003 budget for projects funded by the ARPA. And essentially, these projects that are part of this resolution is to well, I guess these various projects were that have been completed and can be closed, and some others have been deemed no longer necessary and can be canceled. So this resolution is to just appropriate the surplus of funds into the ARPA pool.
Fairly straightforward. Just questions, comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Blake. The next item we have is a presentation from a draft of the financial statements from the county auditors. But if I may, we have an emergency resolution sort of. And if we can just get that out of the way, then, not get it out of the way, if we can, yeah, that didn't sound good, get it out of the way. If we can take care of that first, then we'll hear from you guys. So this resolution authorized acceptance of indigent legal services grant for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Good morning. Derek Gregory on behalf of the Public Defender's Office. First, I want to thank the County Executive's Office and Chairman Nebo and Chairman Pavlock for agreeing to place this on the calendar this morning. This resolution requests permission for the County Executive to execute a contract with Indigent Legal Services for the third Upstate Quality Improvement and Caseload Reduction Grant. As noted, it is for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2023. For whatever reason, the county at some point didn't anticipate getting funds from this grant. There was an inquiry back in 2020 as part of the budget process as to the status of the grant. Back in July of 2020 was the peak of the COVID period. COVID had started back in March of 2020, and the county had reduced services as well as the state. At that point, Indigent Legal Services hadn't made an official announcement for the grant. Indigent Legal Services sent us notice about the fourth upstate grant recently, which we will be seeking approval from the legislature at a later date. But we made inquiry about the third upstate grant and found that we were still eligible for the $300,000 in funding. The funds were included in the public defender's budget. However, there was no, the expenses were included. There was no offsetting revenue. The revenue was not accrued. This grant pays for the fringe and salary for one assistant public defender, the partial fringe and salary. And ILS has agreed to reimburse us for those expenses. So ultimately, at this point, once we receive that revenue, it will go into the general fund of the county.
Questions, comments, concerns?
How could you say no?
Hard to vote against this one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will have a presentation, draft of the financial statements from the county auditors. Thank you for being patient. I know.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. My name is Luke Malecki, engagement partner on this year's external audit for the County of Chautauqua. We are in the final phases of the audit, which is now really have gathered all of our information, all of our procedures are performed, presenting to the audit committee, giving you guys a chance to review the documents that are placed in front of you, waiting on one legal letter that we expect to receive in the next week or two, and then we'll be in a position to release the financial statement package. Point of today's presentation, just to briefly go over some of the results of the audit, some of our required communications, as well as go over briefly some of the financial data that from a third-party perspective, I'm sure you're well aware of from your finance department. So in front of you have two documents. One, the draft set of financial statements. We ask that take time to review these. We hope to release the actual financial statement package the week of August 28th to give you guys enough chance to go through the items. If anything comes of concern, our information is on that last slide of the presentation, so you can certainly reach out to us. And if we hear nothing, we usually assume that everyone's happy with the way they look as they are. We're also working with finance. They're going through, so there are some small edits so far. Any of the edits that were caught are just really tiny little grammaticals or slight linking errors. So not quite the final document, but there will be some small edits. The other document is a presentation that we threw together, similar to what our firm did back when we audited you guys last in, I believe, 2018. So we'll shift your attention to that. If you go to the first slide, which goes through the products of our audit. The main reason you hire us as external auditors is to determine whether or not the financial statements fairly present the activity of the county for the year ended December 31st, 22, and the financial position as of that date. The reason you want that information is namely for your taxpayers, state grant agencies, and the federal government's going to be looking at this as well. Pleased to say that the audit was extremely clean, unmodified opinion. That's what you're looking for. If anything came to our attention when we test internal controls as a government auditing standards entity, you're subject to tests of internal controls. We're by no means internal control auditors, but we test the controls as they relate to the financial statements. If anything came to our attention, we would report that we feel warrants the attention of the audit committee. We would report that as a significant deficiency or a material weakness. No such item. So another clean bill of health with that. That's exactly what you're looking for. The next bullet there is on the opinion of the single audit of the financial statements. I should note that the draft opinion is on page 1 of this document. It's the only item that really belongs to us as the audit firm. The rest of the financial statements are prepared and belong to the financial statement, or the financial department. The single audit opinion is in the back of the book, and it is preceded by the government auditing standards. The government auditing standards opinion is on page 81, which will provide the verification of what I just spoke on, that there's no significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses. The very next page is our professional opinion on the under uniform guidance, which is the new requirements surrounding the single audit. A single audit is a required audit of federal awards for any entity receiving over $750,000. This year, we tested 6 different programs. Your programs are all put into different thresholds of a type A or type B, and we cycle through and test high-risk type A's and high-risk type B's. This year, we tested the Airport Improvement Program, Medicaid, ARPA, lead hazard reduction, epidemiology grant, and TANF. All those came back clean with no question costs, no findings, or anything of that nature. So again, another clean area for our audit. The next 2 bullets are 2 letters of communications that we provide. One is really just an opportunity for us to provide best practices, or if anything did come to our attention that might need a little bit of cleanup on a control side of things, would be the management letter. Anything that we discovered during our audit, minor items here and there, had already been addressed with the finance department. Nothing was a recurring issue or a recurring theme. So we don't have any deficiencies that we plan to outline in our management letter. We're considering some items of best practices that we're talking back and forth with the finance department. Those relate to really 3 key items. One is, in this past year, you guys implemented Government Auditing Standards Board Statement number 87 related to leases. This was a year of collecting data, setting thresholds. So what we're considering and putting in a letter is just to formalize everything that was performed during this past year to set up for that GASB 87. So a real quick, easy fix, just to provide for consistency year over year, to make sure that the leases are treated consistently. I should have said GASB 87. I forget, you guys don't. GASB 87. What's that? GASB 87 relates to leases. It basically said that any lease that's over a year long is now treated like a capital lease, and you record an asset and a liability. Similarly, although you didn't have any in this past year, any leases that you may be a recipient of, a lessor of, you would record a lease receivable and amortize that. So we could give a boilerplate example of a policy that would just go in front of the finance department, and they would just treat that as their own. It doesn't have to go in front of the audit committee or the legislature or anything like that. The next item is kind of a nationwide issue and certainly a concern of everyone in government, in particular the finance side of things, is staffing and the fact that we're starting to see big holes in staffing, in particular in finance departments, but across governments. And what that's doing is those remaining people are getting a little bit burnt out, and we're seeing a mass exodus again. So it's kind of like a twofold problem that's becoming quite secular. So, more of a cycle. So what we're suggesting there is just to prepare for a succession plan, making sure that each department is in the right position to understand what the roles and duties of the key personnel are. So if there were an abrupt exit of a key person, you guys are covered. Just kind of, again, a best practice FYI. We work with over 20 counties in the state, and every county is having that same issue of trying to find good people. And the same amount of work seems to be getting done by less people, which is creating that burnout phase. The last item is really just an FYI, which you are well aware of based on the last 3 resolutions, is that the clock is ticking on the ARPA funds. Every dollar has to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, which is crazy to say, but only about 16 months away. Bring to your attention that as of last Friday, the federal government put together Omnibus 2023, which actually opened the door to some more opportunities. I know most of your money does fall into the revenue loss, but they did say that you can now use it for emergency disaster spending and also for road overlayment and CDBG programs. So the uses are expanding a little bit more. I like to just remind our clients that although we have the best laid plan that we see as the best laid plan in place, come October, November, December next year, some of those vendors may not be available because everyone's on the same time clock as you guys. So I'm guessing that there could be some supply chain issues. It could be tough to get those contracts in place to have a backup plan to be ready to use some of the ARPA funds to maybe shift for another cost and then use that budgetary savings then to set up a restriction to use that ARPA plan that you wanted so that the programs that you're hoping to get done with the ARPA money do get done, but you can relieve yourself of that 2024 time clock. So that's something that you probably worry about more next year at this time. As of now, I think you guys have one of the most sophisticated ARPA plans that's actually being executed. We have places that are 90% still unspent and they're in the panic mode. You at least have a great plan that's being fully implemented. So those are the observations that we had as best practices. As I said, a lot to be pleased at as an audit committee. Our auditors, we spend over 700 hours here. Didn't have any deficiencies that we felt the need to communicate with you guys. So a job well done by your team over there. On the auditor communications letter, that's just the required communications that we have, which gives our roles and responsibilities, management's roles and responsibilities, talk through some key assumptions. I have a slide on that on the next slide, so we'll go over that in more detail there. Some other items, we will release what's referred to as a New York State Department of Transportation report. Basically, it's the same thing as the federal single audit on the state level, only focused in at that transportation spending, the overlayment, the extreme winter recovery, Pave New York, those kind of funds. No items came to our attention that warranted a finding in that audit as well. We're working with to release the DMH CFR. We're waiting for that report to certify. When that comes ready, we'll release that. And then a couple of small AUPs, agreed upon procedures, but nothing out of the ordinary to report on those. We do anticipate everything except for the CFR to be released in the coming month. So on the next slide, our responsibility, as I said, you hire us to gain reasonable assurance that those financial statements are free of material misstatement. We performed our audit and we're able to offer that unmodified opinion to achieve that. The next bullet, that letter will go through any key adjustments in significant accounting policies or any alternative treatments. You had no alternative treatments. The only key significant accounting policy that changed this past year is that Government Accounting Standards Board statement on leases. So that's discussed in there. That statement didn't have a material impact on your net position. There was a slight adjustment to your capital assets and your lease liabilities, but the net impact of those kind of outweighed each other. So there was no reason to restate the financial statements. So for all intents and purposes, the financial statements look very similar to last year, with the exception of adding that a lease liability and a right to use asset category that you'll notice now in the capital assets. Significant accounting estimates, our firm is required to report and our procedures and whether or not we had any issues with any significant accounting estimates. Your accounting estimates include your allowance for doubtful accounts, compensated absences, other post-employment benefits, your health care for retirees, workers' compensation, health insurance liability, net pension asset, and landfill post-closure costs. Each of those either were performed, evaluation was performed in-house, which we would have tested that calculation to ensure that it meets industry standards, or was reported upon by an actuary, and we would review that report with one of our other 20 counties that we're working with to make sure that the assumptions are being used are similar to those other industry standards. We had no issues with any of those, so these estimates we do feel are not misleading to the reader of the financial statements. Independence, we are required to be independent of the county. Everyone in our firm is and signs off as being independent of the county and its personnel. We comply with all those ethical requirements. Some other matters, this is where we would report if we had any difficulties, any known uncorrected errors, or any disagreements. We had none of that. Anything that came up that might have required a journal entry, we discussed with finance and came to a conclusion that reasonably presents the financial statements under GAAP. So that's the qualitative side of things. Next, we'll shift a little bit to the quantitative. Again, should hopefully be just a refresher of what you've been experiencing over the past year. But if you were to look at page 18, we'll give you the revenues and expenditures of the individual funds, probably the best. There's also a budget to actual statement in the back, which is on page 68 through 70 of that. So if you were to look to see how the funds performed to your budget there, that's where you would go. At the end of the fiscal year 22, your county saw a fund balance increase by $19 million up to 62.3. Of that $19 million, $5 million went to fund an additional $5 million went to fund the 2023 budget. So that the increase in fund balance went right back to the taxpayers in the form of an appropriated fund balance in the year that we're living right now. $14 million went to build unassigned fund balance. I have a slide here later on that compares your unassigned fund balance ratio. Because counties of different size, it's best to compare your ratio of what your unassigned fund balance is to your expenditures compared to other peers to see how you stack up against some similar counties out there. But for this slide now, you can see your revenues went up by about $32.7 million from $243 million to $276 million. The bulk of that was in state and federal aid. State and federal aid increased $22.4 million. That's kind of become the post-pandemic theme with the combination of both your ARPA money as well as economic assistance social programs kicking back into full gear in 22, 20, and 21 were kind of a partial year, as well as some new programs that are out there that were raised from the pandemic within public health. So we saw some epidemiology money, a lot of mental health money getting funded from the federal government. So all told, of that $32.7 million increase in revenue, 2/3 of that was comprised of state and federal aid increases. Additionally, we in 2022, I don't probably have to remind you, but the tribal compact money came back into play, and a lot of the municipalities that were previously receiving that and that halted are now receiving that money again. The real property tax and tax items increased by about $10 million if you stack that year to year. It's really in the form of collections of past deferred taxes. A lot of municipalities saw several of their taxpayers unable to make the tax payments that were required during the pandemic, and those came into suit in 2022. So that, combined with some penalties and interest, as well as a nominal increase a slight increase to the tax levy, accounted for about $10 million of that $32 million. The remaining of it was a continual increased trend in sales tax, not nearly as impactful as the tax trend from 20 to 21, or sales tax trend from 20 to 21, but it did still increase, which is good. Obviously, we don't want to see that number start decreasing, but it is starting to level off a little bit as far as that rate of change. And again, that is not a unique thing to Chautauqua County. We're seeing that statewide. A lot of places saw anywhere from 10 to even 30% of increases last year, and now we're down to about 2 to 10% statewide on that. Those were all offset slightly by the difficulty in the markets. You saw your investments lost by about $2.4 million. I would be willing to guess, I haven't looked at it, but I'd be willing to guess that most of that has been remedied in the strong 2023 year that we've seen so far in the financial markets. On the expenditure side of things, those also increased, but not as quite the rate. They increased by about 22.4, and the bulk of that, close to 10 million, was related to that state and federal aid. So as I said, economic assistance and opportunity, where all your Department of Social Service programs, all the federal aid that to do those public health programs increased by about $7 million. Some new programs, but most of it was really just getting back on that trend line of what we saw in 17, 18, 19, kind of slow down a little bit in 2021. In 2022, counties across the state started to see that all ramp up to full gear. We also saw the health with a lot of new programs back, about that increased by about $2.6-3 million or so. Again, most of that was related to new programs coming on board. There was some of that similar to the DSS programs where we're going back to where it was in full gear. The fortunate thing about those increases is they're matched mostly by state and federal aid. Also within that increase of 22.4 million is an increase in 5.2 for capital projects funds funded by ARPA, as well as capital projects that were being performed within the road and machinery funds. We have some slides on the road and machinery funds just to show that status later on, but that did account for about $5.2 million of that increase in expenses. So where did that all go? If you flip back one page prior, on page 16 in the financial statements, we'll show you where the fund balances ended up. There, of course, is a footnote on page 59 through 62 that will explain the details of what the components of these are. GASB 54, back about 10 years ago, said that we have 5 categories. You have 4 of those 5 categories. You have non-spendable fund balance. That's where your prepaid items, your inventory are. Can't be used really. That's just an asset that's just going to be used for that particular purpose. The restricted fund balance, that's the most restrictive spendable asset or at fund level of fund balance. Those are items that the state government says we can have a legal reserve for that will require spending through authorization. Committed fund balance, of which you have none, is a very similar one where the board would authorize, the legislature would authorize to intend to use a certain amount of money for this specific purpose and could only spend that money with a resolution. So very restrictive. The next one is an assignment. Your assignments really are comprised of the budgetary appropriation for next year, to the 2023 budget, as well as a component of encumbrances. Those items also could be where you would earmark funds. You don't have any of that type of items there. And then, of course, the residual leftover is unassigned fund balance. So as you can see on the chart, the blue component is your unassigned fund balance. That would be what what a reader of the financial statements would be considered like your savings account, your rainy day fund, whatever you want to refer to it as. It has grown from 9 million to 43 million, fueled by that recovery, largely from the sales tax, as well as that ARPA funding over the last 3 years. This past year it did increase by $14 million. A popular way to categorize, because no one tells you the right level of unassigned fund balance to have, except for the Government Finance Officers Association, recommends that you should have 2 months of spending, basically to get you from the beginning of the year to when the tax roll starts coming in. So that would be about 16.7% of your annual operating budget. So you want to get through 2 months of spending. If we looked at that, you were at 17.1, so right within that, right near that recommended range. That compares to about 12.3% of where you were last year when you look at your annual spending of about 255 million. There wasn't much activity in the red portion other than, as I said, allocating more funds in the 2023 budget by about $5 million. There was also about $1 million of money that came in from the pharmaceutical settlement for that opioid money. So some of that money is available for unrestricted use. Some of it is for restricted use. About $1 million in your fund balance is now available for restricted use. As I said, I thought it would be helpful to compare where you stack up to other counties. I actually didn't pick these. I was over at St. Lawrence County on Monday, very similar size budget. They have about 240 million, you're about 255. They were the far left column. I just swapped out your data there with what I compared theirs with. So these budgets, you're at 257 million. Jefferson's budget's about 225 million. Wayne's about 154 million. Oswego and Warren are, Oswego's about 192 million, and Warren's about 155 million. So although you saw some increases in fund balance in the last few years, you can see when you put it in a kind of the equalized ratio of what your level of available fund balance is to your annual spending to create this ratio, you're still not quite as high as any of these other counties. Now that's the level of interpretation is up to you. Just wanted to throw the fact out there. Also, you'll see of where when you look at these compared to where everyone was in 2020, statewide, everyone has gone up this past year. Every client that I've been exposed to, every client that we use as a comparable in our charts has a higher fund balance today than it did 2 years ago. So see it as you will, but it's a nice safety net that came out of the pandemic there. Just to give you a level of fund balance, I did tell you the budgets. You had the highest budget out of these five entities. You also had the second lowest of available fund balance. You were at 43.7 million. Jefferson was at 49.7. Wayne's at 86 million. Oswego County's at 57 million, and Warren County's at 40 million. So of these, only Warren County has a lower unassigned fund balance of that. If you'd like to see any other county compared in here, I can get that information. We just use it through the Open Book New York site. I'd be happy to swap out any of those other comparables if you wanted to see anyone else in the state, just to see how you stacked up. I just did it because it was convenient, and I was throwing it together last minute after we talked to finance. So this would be a helpful thing to look at. So yes, sir.
Just for perspective, for those who may not have been exposed to this level of detail previously, the state controller's opinion in New York State is that if your unassigned fund balance is higher than 15%, you are probably taking too many tax dollars from your constituents because you have too much in reserve. So the fact that we're at 17% is in line with the state controller's opinion. And I would think that the state controller's opinion of a county that has 56% in the unassigned fund balance would be very concerned with that in terms of their taxing jurisdiction.
I would agree with you, but then I would also say if you talk to a bond rated agency, they would have the opposite opinion. So it's a matter of it's the matter of how you direct your message to who you're talking to. So I wouldn't doubt that if the state controller came into Wayne County and looked at their fund balance as part of their cycle, they would have some comments to say. But I would also say that they would probably get a better bond rating than anyone that might have a 10% available fund balance. So it's a double-edged sword. There's really no right answer, and no auditor I know will give you a level of fund balance that you want to have.
And that's consistent with what our auditors have told us in the past.
Perfect.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
In that this chart would make people wonder why our fund balance is so low. But the flip side of that is you would also wonder why those other counties' fund balance is so high.
Absolutely. Every time I show this chart, everyone says, what's going on in Wayne County?
I just want to make a point of clarification too. What they're presenting is the recommendation based on the percentage of expenditures.
Yes.
We typically talk in terms of as a percentage of recurring revenue. So our 15.6% that we're calculating is on a percentage of recurring revenues.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, like all graphs and charts, it's a matter to interpretation. Those are very good points, and you're absolutely correct. The state goes, we're working with Olean schools. There's a fresh new report out there about how they have too much fund balance too. They definitely are making that known throughout the state. Mm-hmm. So shifting to the other two funds, again, going back to page 18, where your county road funds are. This year, for the first time since 2018, you saw a slight decrease in county road. That was methodical in approach, new capital projects, new constructions, planned use of using some of that permit money, the permit fees money to use that. So we saw the expenditures within transportation go up $4.3 million, mostly related to capital. That increase was year over year. Federal aid did increase 1.4 to help support that, as well as some general fund money to help support that to 1.2 million. Where you are with fund balance on this is a healthy fund balance, but it's a very capital driven fund, so it's good to have those available fund balances there if an emergency were to pose itself that you need to improve the county roads. So this fund ended up with $6.4 million of fund balance, of which 322,000 of that is comprised of prepaid items or inventory, so not really a cash item. About $6 million available on hand for future projects or for emergency spending. So as I said, a very healthy spot for this fund, especially when you compare it to where it's been in 2018. But you can also see over the past 3 years, the buildup of that permit fees kind of fueling that increase to be used for capital projects in this past 22 year. The last fund I'd like to talk about here is the Road Machinery Fund. The Road Machinery Fund actually continues its trend of having expenditures increase or exceed the revenues. So you can imagine that's starting to dig into fund balance a little bit. The reason this one's important to keep an eye on is because most of that increase, that $1 million increase this past year, was fueled by diesel and gasoline costs. The rising costs related to the post-pandemic inflation, as well as all the supply chain issues and the whole issue that when fuel spiked with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing that happened, caused all those expenses to skyrocket statewide. The reason it's an issue is because this fund relies on the general fund mostly to support it, so it could become a budgetary concern in the future, because right now this ending fund balance is about $448,000. However, there's non-spendable fund balance of $612,000, so it actually has an unassigned portion that's in a deficit position that probably should be addressed in a future budget. You'll see that on the next slide, the dwindling down of this fund balance. It's a concern, but it's not that huge of a concern when you're talking about a fund that has a budget of $5 million. Really what it boils down to is it's going to end up being a greater allocation of the general fund's $255 million budget to this road machinery fund. So those are the funds that the governmental funds that typically we talk about. We do look at your business type activities slightly. Those are presented as a business type activity. So the financial statements tend to get a little bit misleading because they bring in long-term items. I don't have a slide on that, but just if you were to look at page 20, what you'll see here is a lot more information because you have your capital assets, deferred inflows, long-term liabilities, and net position. Typically, what we like to focus on when we look at these are a combination of two different things. Number one, we'll look at your current assets compared to your current liabilities, which would be the ability to meet the other area, the necessary obligations in the coming year. Which the only area of concern with there would be the water fund, which has a large interfund payable. But on the other hand, we also look more importantly at the cash flows, because those interfund payables can be constructed to be over the course of years rather than just a one-time due in the next year item. So if we looked at the cash flows on page 22, in particular, that's kind of gives you a quick measure of health of how 22 did. Namely, we look at that first area of the cash flows used for or provided by operating activities. That's really what, if you think of what your budget is your revenues and your expenditures of your cash without looking into considering the capital items. On that case, your sewer and water had a slight decrease as far as the receipts from the services supporting the operations. Landfill did a very good job of having the receipts from operations supporting their operations, and the electric plant did as well. So a little bit of focus on if those trends continue in those sewer and water. But I think from a year-to-year perspective, when you're looking at the number of dollars that are flowing through there, 100 or 200,000 on and off is not out of the ordinary. that's the formal presentation. I'd be happy to have address any questions that you might have. Again, as I said, my information is, and I apologize, I never introduced Jared. This is Jared Picard. He's the manager that actually did most of the work here. I probably should have noticed that at the beginning. I was just too excited after that waiting. But we'd be happy to if you reached out to us to address any questions you might have or address that now. And so it's a lot of information, I know.
Yeah.
That's why we give you a week to digest it and try to figure out what the heck I just said. Any questions?
Questions, comments?
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks to your finance
Thanks.
department. A job well done.
I was gonna say, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, everybody. And
Todd,
we'll
a
try
little
that.
bit of a hiccup this year.
This is great. Great information. Thank you.
Thanks.
And it's great to hear that we're doing things well. So
Yeah.
it is good.
I can't make that happen. I'm just a relayer of
No,
information.
no,
So you
but
take that.
I'm saying, good to hear,
Yeah.
good to hear that reported. Absolutely.
I agree.
Thank you. All right. Last item. Motion to adjourn. Oh, any other? None? Other? Nothing? Good?
Make the motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned? Seconded, all in favor? Aye, adjourned.
I will say, Cattaraugus County just got audited by the state. They looked at their sexual harassment policy and they have so much fund balance. So it's not on the radar for the counties yet. It could be.